Today on the Rise of the Challenge podcast.
Well, occasionally here and there, just making comments, slick comments about me not being, fit, not having muscle strength, and just kind of looking more, nerdy and not really in shape at all with much strength on me. And more, just more like a toothpick to some of these people. So that really, that really did make it hard growing up, to have that confidence that I really wanted and needed.
Welcome to the Rise of the Challenge podcast. Joining today, he's a high performance coach, actor, model. It's Roman Fischer. How are you doing today, Roman?
Pretty good. Pretty good. How about you?
Doing good. We are so excited to have you on the show to talk about your rise to the challenge. What we like to do with all of our guests is go right to the beginning. Talk about where you're from and what you like doing growing up.
Okay. So initially I was born in Ohio, Toledo, Ohio specifically, not too far from, it was like northwestern Ohio, so not too far from Detroit, Michigan, actually. But yeah, still a relatively safe area. Grew up in Perrysburg for several years and then was brought down to Arkansas. It's funny from Ohio to Arkansas, but brought down to Arkansas, lived there much of my life from there, due to my dad's job relocating us. And so what I really loved to do growing up was play video games, hang out, just with friends growing up, the obvious stuff that a lot of people like to do growing up. Go to movies, see always the, latest, greatest movies. And I really got, into fitness later on, but it wasn't one of those things that I just picked up early on and fell in love with. Now, I will admit I did play soccer throughout my childhood, and that was one physical activity that I really did enjoy personally. But outside of that and beyond that, I didn't really do too much physical exercises. I really just got more into, some reading maybe, but beyond that, played video games, was more or less a couch potato, and more than anything. So that was one of the things that I was really heavily involved with. But then later on, as I got older, things came up in my life and it really changed the whole trajectory of where I was going with and what I was doing. And that's what eventually got me into fitness.
When did you move from Ohio to Arkansas? What age was that for you?
Yeah, so it wasn't like super old. So I was more about like 5 years old when that happened. So I was still relatively young.
Is there anything in Arkansas that was like a favorite of yours for your family growing up? Something that's like a hidden secret that maybe people don't know about?
Let's see. The thing that I could probably think of the most in Arkansas that comes to my mind, I would have to say honestly, it was going to Pettit Jean, and just it was like a national state park. It has a lot of beautiful mountains and the sunsets are just really good. They line up perfect with the trees, the colors of the trees with the sunset. It's amazing, especially in the summer and fall. There's just something about the sunset zone.
You talked about soccer was that only activity for a time being. What specifically about soccer was that decision? Out of all the sports, was there something that brought you towards soccer the most?
Yeah, there were a couple things from what I remember that really drew me into that sport compared to all the other ones. So, for one, I tried out a few of the other sports, but I didn't really get involved in it like I did with soccer. So, after trying out a few of the different sports out there and available, I quickly realized that soccer was more my favorite. Also, the fact that I was born with naturally stronger and bigger calves that only helped my decision. I'm like, okay, I'm built for this sport, so I may as well go and run with it. No pun intended. So,
Did you ever see it going long term? Like, oh, playing on more private teams or high school or even further than that?
for a bit, I did actually. The thought of it, not gonna lie, did kind of scare me at first. I'm like, because, big goals require big actions. Not to say that you shouldn't, of course, set big goals. You always
Yeah.
should. That's part of what makes life good and interesting and great, and it helps people grow, you and I and anyone else. But I will have to admit, though, it did still intimidate me for that moment. And I'm like, yeah, that's a huge step. That's a huge leap. But yeah, I did think about it for a good brief period for sure. And now I did play some high school soccer, and that was fun. But yeah, I never really went beyond that. But I was told that I was pretty good. I was naturally inclined and pretty athletic. I mean, of course, that's kind of what I do now. I don't play like soccer, but yeah, athletic. But I was told that I could make something from it. And it was cool. I was actually a soccer player, throughout my high school career for a couple years. And I actually played alongside people that were from other countries. We had some foreign exchange students that were brought in. So that was neat. I played with one guy from Germany, one guy from Japan. He was actually a mix of African American and Japanese. So that was interesting seeing that, background and diversity. And then also too, there was this one guy, no, two guys from Colombia, but only one of them played on the soccer team. So that was a pretty neat mix. Yeah.
I think it's always great when you have that diversified backgrounds with people on your teams because you kind of get to learn what certain skills do they practice the most because you get out there on the field or any court, any sport, and you see like their specialty. And then you kind of connect it to like, okay, how did they learn that so quickly? Like you specialize in a certain skill and you focus on that. They are in a completely different world. And even when you watch sports nowadays, especially soccer, football, you watch the UK and how they play, and then you turn on to America. It's so different in like how they practice and the skill. It's just amazing to see the different backgrounds and experiences and how they play the sports.
Oh yeah. Yeah, 100%. It's crazy like the difference in just one country to the very next one. It's a huge difference for sure.
You talked about fitness, didn't really come into a big play until something happened. Talk about leading into that moment and the change in your mindset when it came to fitness.
Yeah, so yeah, like I was saying, fitness was not one of those things that I was really into much growing up. Now, the turning point, you know, was really when I was about, I would say 15 to 16 years old. That's when I got into the weightlifting aspect of, working out, exercising. And that, what really drew me into that, funny enough, it was actually my younger brother who encouraged me, really not so much directly encouraged me, but his actions encouraged and inspired me to actually want to pick up the weights for myself. Because, him and I both grew up as more of the skinny kids throughout school. So seeing my brother specifically and especially my younger brother, I'm like, okay, all right, if he can pick up the weights and if he can make something, of himself and, gain that strength and that muscle, I want to do the same thing. So if he can do it, I can do it too. So yeah, that's when I started getting into the weightlifting. And yeah, I just wanted to tone up. I wasn't, fat by any means, but I was more skinny fat, so I didn't really have a lot of muscle, but also had just a little bit of fat around my abdominal area. So not like overweight, but I wasn't like toned up, didn't have that six pack going on or anything. So I wanted to transform that for my own physique, my own body, and I wanted to, yeah, increase my overall confidence and just feel better and yeah, just look better for myself and anyone else. But that really got me into that. And then beyond that, there were definitely other factors that helped me with my nutrition and really helped really just have me focus on what to eat, what not to eat,
Mhm.
because I was also not really keen or at least not aware even of what I was eating. A lot of the times I knew what I was eating was probably not good for me, but at the same exact time, I didn't know the extent of how bad it was for me either.
Mhm.
So like that really did, hit me. after I really analyzed that and researched the ingredients, that I was eating and all the bad stuff that people consume, whether it's food or drink on a daily basis, not even knowing it sometimes. So that also helped me just make a change for my, health with what I was eating. So not just with the weights and the workouts, but also with the nutritional aspect of my life. And then beyond that too, there was another yet more serious event, but still an event that did push me in the direction of being healthier, eating healthier, just being a healthier version all around.
Do you feel that, especially at 15 to 16, is such a crucial age with high school because that's where major bullying and things like that occur? Did that ever play an effect? Not bullying in specific, but you talked about gaining more confidence. Was that something that you struggled with, and that not having that look or that physique kind of made it even worse in a way?
Yeah, to an extent, for sure, I did have, I wouldn't say I was like the kid with like the least amount of confidence in the world, but I would definitely say I did struggle majorly with self-confidence. I was, growing up, I stuttered a lot. I was very shy. I did not really have an easy time talking to just random people. It was hard to make conversation. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to say it. I just felt, socially awkward, and I was not one of those people that really knew how to engage and maintain a healthy, productive conversation. And that really made it hard growing up and just being, yeah, more shy and timid when I was younger. I would just really did struggle with that self-confidence. So that was a major thing that I had to really break from. And having that physique not be, you know, of course you don't have to have a six pack to be super confident. It
Mhm.
helps, but you don't have to have that as long as you're at least decently fit. That's what it really does come down to ultimately. But I didn't really have that, physique that I felt would make me confident at that moment. Again, I wasn't super fat. I was more skinny fat specifically, and that still like seeing that and then people, occasionally here and there just making comments, slick comments about me not being, fit, not having muscle strength, and just kind of looking more, nerdy and not really in shape at all with much strength on me and more, yeah, just more like a toothpick to some of these people. So that really, that really did make it hard growing up, to have that confidence that I really wanted and needed. But yeah, fitness definitely helped me break through that challenge and just really transform my overall life as a whole. Yeah.
Getting into health and fitness, did that change your mind of what you wanted to do as a career? What was that dream job that you were wanting?
Yeah, so it's funny. Honestly, growing up, I really did go through a lot of different, career fields and ideas in my head of like what I would want to do, what I would never want to do, and what I might want to do potentially in the future. And so growing up, really when I was a young teen, even slightly before I was a teenager, I knew that somewhere in the entertainment industry, and then I started to feel that acting and modeling was a pretty cool combination. I'm like, I just like the idea of like seeing people on the screen and potentially being one of those people. So just that alone gave me a lot of inspiration for that. And also too, this isn't something I've talked about much on podcast interviews, but my sister, she actually was a former model and she did some acting herself. So that also inspired me to want to get into the whole, entertainment field and industry. And then beyond that, I didn't really see fitness as a career, but as I started getting into fitness for myself,
Mhm.
picking up the weights, eating better, eating healthier, and seeing the positive long-term effects, even the short-term effects, that really did inspire me to want to inspire other people with fitness. And then from there, I was like, okay, maybe, just maybe, this is something I could actually also turn into a career. And well, I could probably work them both together and just do some acting and modeling and then do some fitness stuff. And then I was like, okay, fitness coaching actually sounds pretty cool. I like helping myself and I like helping other people and I love fitness. So
What was the path like next for you? Where did you go direction wise? Did you go to acting schools? Did you go out? A lot of times people who want to be actors go to California or go to the coast. What was that path for you?
yeah, that's a great question. So I didn't honestly go to New York and I didn't even go to LA like most people typically would in that situation. I actually started at my local agency. So the one in Little Rock in Arkansas, I started with them. And then from there, I tried to branch out and then apply for some agencies in the surrounding region, which I guess in my instance is like south, even southeast to an extent. So then I started looking at some up and coming cities that are actually really huge in entertainment. And so I started applying for agencies in Atlanta and then some even actually got a couple in Florida that I applied for too, but one of those two actually found me first and
Oh,
wanted to sign me. So I was like, all right. So yeah, they actually signed me last year. So that was really cool. And then one of the other ones I actually applied for a couple years ago, but then they actually saw my self-submission, liked it, and so they wanted me to be part of their agency too.
wow.
But yeah, one in Atlanta and two in Florida, and then I have like one regional one here. But much of my auditions and much of my works really come through the Atlanta and Florida agencies. But that's really the route I took. Now I will admit I did go out to California for a short period of time, but I found that okay, it's cool out here, but man, like it can be it can be a little expensive out this
Oh
way.
yeah.
So I'm like, even with gigs, it's still gonna be cutting it because you have to rent. Yeah, we all know the story out there. So beautiful weather, though. I mean, beautiful weather,
Yeah.
awesome food. No, I mean, it'd be hard not to say that. So those are the huge pros to that. But beyond that, it's definitely one of those places that just, it's just a lot of money to be out there. So I've actually found that now with the journey that I'm on with acting and modeling, potentially going to be doing this Florida modeling gig in Florida. And then I also have Atlanta that I'll be, hey, funny enough, moving to literally next week.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah. So, because Atlanta is a huge up and coming hub for the entertainment industry. So that's kind of where I'm at right now as we speak.
You got a lot
Yeah,
of exciting things going on.
going for that.
Especially when you mentioned about the California, it's like that's always that dream place that the entertainment industry people want to go to. But like you mentioned, it's so expensive. I went there for a vacation for a week and I saw how expensive it was just for going for a week and I'm coming back to the Midwest. So you kind of found the way around it, but still getting that big access with going to starting local and really building your name, building that brand that you are. Is there any gigs that you've had so far that has been exciting or rewarding for you from an experience standpoint where you learned a lot about yourself doing it?
Yes. So there were a couple actually. So one in particular that's actually has yet to be released as a, overall production and movie. But Reagan, that was that was fun. I wasn't, a leading character or anything like that, but I was featured pretty well in one scene and I was right alongside Dennis Quaid, who played
Oh,
former President Ronald Reagan. So I was a Secret Service agent to that president in that scene, or for Dennis Quaid. That was a really neat scene. What it really taught me is, you know, how it is to work alongside professional, already well-established, famous actors, and just the time and effort that it requires, the consistency, redoing scenes. But also at the same time, not just the hard work and dedication and consistency in that, but also the fun that it can bring to people in the scene and the overall collaboration and teamwork and effort. It's a really neat experience all wrapped into one. So that's what it really taught me, just a lot of hard work and patience and the experience. The experience really taught me a lot. I mean, experiences in general, especially if they're new, they really do add a lot to your character
Hmm.
and your just overall, character building. It's really cool.
Have they given you any insight on when it potentially could be released? Like what quarter of a year it should be, or is it still to be determined for them?
Right. So it's okay, so COVID, that's where it got tricky at first because COVID did delay it. It was supposed to already release about a year ago already. So yeah, COVID did put a damper on the overall production of that film, but it's supposed to be released the end of this year, but it's not it's not being
We're
released
already
because
at the
we're
end of the
already
year.
exactly. So what I'm seeing and from what I've heard because it was stated that 2024, like later 2024 is supposed to be it, but obviously that's not gonna happen. So what I'm seeing and from what I've heard, it's more than likely gonna drop next year in the first quarter of next year.
That'll come quick. That will be
Oh
very
yeah, it
soon.
won't be long, but I'm excited to see it because I was like right there in that scene, right there in that scene, right alongside Dennis Quaid as that Secret Service agent, and that was so cool. I mean, literally, just to go a little bit more into the experience, I actually had a real life Uzi they gave me, obviously not loaded, but
Mhm.
had a real life Uzi and protected the president with it supposedly in the scene and I was pretending like I was shooting, a nearby suspect. So that was neat. It was really neat.
You kind of felt like you were in a video game in a way, kind of
Yeah, I
playing
did. I
that
had to like unload
character.
this. Yeah, GoldenEye 007 coming to life. One of my favorites, actually. Still like
Going
video games.
going into modeling, a lot of times modeling gets that bad rap with the pressure that it puts on the individual and kind of the mental mindset and the mental health aspect. Did it ever take you too far or extreme or play with your mental health in a way with getting prepared for a gig or just that lifestyle that you have to be in?
Yeah, it's funny, you mentioned that because I never really got, too mentally affected, luckily, by the, mindset and mentality that the people have in this industry. I've oftentimes really been pretty strict with my diet as it is. Now, I do like to, cheat once in a great while, and that's what you should do from a fitness standpoint anyway to enjoy it some. But I never really got too drained mentally or affected with that emotionally or mentally, luckily. So that's something I can actually say with absolute positivity that that's never happened, luckily for me, at least. But you're right, it does affect some people because some people just can't, you know, stick to a certain look or
Yep.
they just don't feel right doing a certain gig, perhaps even maybe not even related to any, stuff with their physique, just stuff in a gig that they may not want to participate in.
Do you find a gig similar to how with acting you had that one gig that played a big part in your journey? Was there one for modeling that was that similar way that kind of really got you even more excited about what is that next opportunity out there for you?
Yes. Okay, so one was really neat. So I actually worked with he was a pretty well established and he still is a really well established and well known photographer here in Little Rock actually. And so he does a lot of wedding photography, but what was really neat is he's also had stuff published in Vogue. And
Okay.
so, yeah, it was really cool. He didn't get me published in Vogue, but he got me published in a pretty well-known online magazine called Dark Beauty Magazine. And yeah, it was really neat just seeing that because they have, I believe, if not a million, close to a million followers on their Instagram. And I was featured, I was featured on that. And yeah, it was really neat. It had like, I think like three or four small flowers kind of going down the on my back. And it was more of like an implied nude photo. It wasn't like nude, but implied nude. And it was a really neat, just overall artistic take of me just kind of blending in with the shadow a little bit, but also
Mhm.
having some of the back part of me where you could see like flowers on my back. It was just a really neat, crazy but really neat and cool artistic take on modeling. And me being part of that, seeing that, and then it being published in Dark Beauty magazine on their site and social media, I was like, okay, this is pretty neat, pretty exciting, and it makes me just want to do more. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next opportunity and fingers crossed I get this thing in Florida. Let's see, early January, actually.
Well, that will be exciting if you get it, because that will be
Yes.
something that you're looking forward to and that it can really take your career to the next level.
Oh yeah.
With your fitness industry kind of career, content creation is something that really has you really working hard because you have to put yourself out there, especially in the career with acting and modeling. You're putting yourself out there where people have to really learn more to get to know you, plus future jobs. With creating content, especially for fitness, what's been challenging about that, as that is something that you can go on social media and I can find probably 10,000 people doing the same thing. But how do you keep yourself to stand out there to find new clients, to market yourself, something that makes you different than the other 10,000s that are out there?
Yeah, great question. I mean, that's something that a lot of people, especially in my space, struggle with because there are so many fitness influencers, as they call them, on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. I mean,
Yep.
basically every platform out there. So what I usually do to separate myself, other than just having, good lighting, uh, great audio, I actually just recently got one of those wireless Rode mics with
Okay.
the transmitter and receivers. So that's going to help boost my overall engagement too. But yeah, that definitely has helped a lot. But in addition to that, posting shorter videos and usually more reels, that also helps a lot. But there also are a lot of different reels from a lot of different people. So then I try to separate myself even further by having a really solid, tight niche or niche, one, however you say that. Yeah, and what I usually do is I target women who are typically, in their 30s to 40s, 50s maybe, but typically 30s to 40s, close to middle-aged about. And I try to target them, and they're typically busier, professionals. So they still have like, decent money, but they also are trying to look to lose weight.
Mhm.
And so they're dedicated to more home workouts. And so I've been noticing that these home workouts that I post, they've been attracting just a lot of people because a lot of people want to be able to just work out at home, not always just have to go to the gym or go to the gym, period. So that's something that I've used to separate myself quite a bit. And then from there, I'll even use an AI generated software where I can actually have subtitles in my videos to you. So that's helped tremendously too, because some people will watch a video and that's fine, but some people actually like to see what's, being said in the video, even if their volume's not fully up or up at all. So that's also helped too with audience retention and then eventually getting clients from there.
With your background, not really having that fitness industry aspect, but from your own personal experience with fitness, does that ever bring a challenge with a client that you're talking about potentially working with, where they're kind of unsure because maybe you don't have that experience or that background or kind of the industry knowledge in a way?
Yeah, for certain people that don't, you know, or for certain people that may have certain, you know, backgrounds that I don't, correlate with or share, what I typically do is I try to customize it to, as best to what their activity level still is and their height, their age, their weight. And even if I wasn't fully, someone that went through like whatever background they had,
Yeah.
and even if I don't fully relate to it, I try to make it as customized to their background as best as I can. And yeah, it always does work with them, yeah, just getting results and seeing really life-changing things in their body and their life.
You talked about with fitness for you. Do you have a fun fitness challenge that you are working towards that you have in your mind or a goal that you're looking forward towards?
Yeah, so really what I'm doing personally right now is I actually just recently stopped cutting for myself. So now I'm just trying to just lean bulk. So my challenge, I'd say the best way to put it is I'm just trying to gain as much muscle as possible with as little fat gain as possible. So yeah, just lean gains. Oh
Does
yeah.
going through that fitness transformation with what you're doing now, does that ever take away from separating professional life and personal life, where you're so focused on, okay, fitness, acting, modeling, I got to help my clients, then I got to enjoy myself as Roman and enjoy my life, enjoy the people around me and things like that.
Yes, there's definitely a balance that you have to try to create as best as you can. And it's one of those things that does not really come very easily all the time. But what I try to do, and this has actually helped me quite a bit, is I'll typically try to wake up early, not too early, but early enough where I'm still ahead of the game, so to speak. And that way I can actually get up out of bed, maybe think of some things I'm grateful for to kind of just get that fire going for the start of the day. And then from there, get my coffee, get my workout in first. That way I'm grounded for the day. And that way I'm kind of already taking care of myself right away. So that way I can just show up better for myself and other people. And then from there, do any coaching calls I might have, any podcast interviews like this. And then, yeah, from there, just see any auditions I might have and just allocate each thing and try to prioritize, the most important thing first to the next most important thing, depending on due dates, stuff like that of auditions and when coaching calls are. And then I just structure my day from there. And also what's really helped me to just structure, when to work and when to take time for friends, family, myself is other than getting up early and taking care of my own self with my health and workouts in the morning, I'll also have a, list in my phone, like a notepad in my phone, and it'll be like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, just basically a schedule for each week on what I'm going to do for each day in that week. And then from basically the very first thing to the very last thing, that's what I'll do. So that way I know which thing to start with, which thing to end with. And then from there, I can have the rest of the evening to just chill with myself and with any friends or family.
Looking at the journey you've been on, what is the biggest challenge you faced that has really changed you to learn even more about yourself? What was that growing challenge that really took place in your life?
Yeah, I'd have to say that really the biggest challenge that I overcame, really, man, there's a couple things, but I would probably have to say it was really having the willpower to want to be and eat healthier. Picking up the weights actually wasn't too big of a challenge. Obviously, it took time to get consistent with the workout schedule and really lift heavier weights and get better with my form and everything. But what really was a struggle was trying to eat healthy and be consistent in that
Mhm.
because I was not used to eating healthy. I would eat anything and everything that I saw, candies, Reese's, Twizzlers, Sour Patch Kids, just the whole nine yards. And beyond that, I would also, usually eat a lot of junk food beyond, just candies like Cheez-Its, a lot of salty, crackers, Slim Jims. So that was really hard to just push away,
Mhm.
from my life and my eating habits. So as I started getting more into, health and fitness, I actually pushed that back, ultimately for good. But it didn't come overnight. And I'll admit I had a lot of cravings, and that was hard to, push through. That challenge was really hard to overcome. But as I started doing it gradually and over time, it got easier, got so much easier over time. And then before too long, I have not even had a craving, and I don't even crave those things anymore. That's what's really neat about it.
You talk about the cravings. Like I tell someone, like I haven't eaten fast food in like 2 years. And to me, like I see the commercials all the time and I'm like, oh, I want that. But it's never told me to like actually go out, drive my car to those places and actually order something like that. So I think it just shows like once you're in that routine and that pattern of not even touching it or going to those places, you kind of have that mental game where it's like it doesn't even phase you anymore. You kind of like, oh, it's there, but it's not like, okay, I have to go there. I need to drive to the drive-through. And I think it just shows like willpower, like you mentioned. It's your personal challenge that you're on to tell yourself there's better things out there. There's better choices out there. You don't need it and things like that.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's really cool, like how strong and powerful your mind is. You just got to train it the right way.
You talked about another challenge. That first challenge was the health and fitness. What was that second challenge that really changed you?
Yeah, the other challenge I would have to say was, and it does kind of correlate within, health and fitness. But it's more of a mental thing than anything, but also emotional. So I struggled, and I mean struggled, other than low self-confidence, depression, which obviously they both can go hand in hand pretty easily. So those two things, depression, deep depression, and low self-confidence, those were just things intertwined that really, really put a damper on my overall well-being mentally and emotionally, and also affected me physically. Because I mean, that led me to not want to be active. It led me to eat more unhealthy foods and not really think about it. So those were definite things that really made it hard to overcome. I mean, they were balls and, they were, yeah, just, it was a ball and chain. It was a ball and chain.
Did anyone have any ideas about what you were going through with depression, anxiety, and all that? Or were you very quiet about it?
Yeah, it kind of a mix. It was a mix between the two. So my family, specifically my parents especially, knew about it, but beyond that, not many more people knew about it. I kept it more so to myself beyond that. I never really talked about it, in school with anyone, whether it was a teacher or a classmate. Just I never really got into the habit of talking about it. It
Mhm.
was a really hard thing to deal with. Um, you know, just it's one of those things that I think I was partially, I wasn't born with low self-confidence, but I was partially born with the depression. Being kind of just one of those things that run in the family type thing, like a genetic situation. But still, certain other things made that a reality more so for me. But yeah, depression and low self-confidence were definite things that I struggled with, though.
For someone that's listening to this and health and fitness kind of really helped you from a mindset standpoint, what would you tell that person if they are going through maybe anxiety or low confidence that's really playing with their mental health? What does health and fitness have done for you that could help them? We know that people just can't go into the gym, do a bunch of weights, but even that slow progress, getting in there and taking one step at a time, what would you tell someone going through that?
Right. So I would first say, first and foremost, like anything in life, it's temporary. So the best and the worst things are temporary. And what's great is that really does apply to the worst, possible things in people's lives. So if you're struggling with depression, low self-confidence, or any other challenge in your life, whether it's an emotional, mental, or otherwise, it's only temporary. It's
Mhm.
not going to last here forever, luckily. So knowing that should automatically give you some motivation, inspiration, and even some positivity in your life. Just knowing that first and foremost. Beyond that, I would really just make a plan to try to figure out what that, problem is, what is causing that problem, whether it's depression, whether it's just low self-confidence or anything else. Like, what is the root of the problem? You have to figure out and finally find out that problem before you can really fix the overall problem. You have to know what's causing it. And then from there, I would take the, just really small steps to fixing that problem. So even if you have to break a lot of bigger steps into smaller steps to achieve that, I would do that. And then from there, definitely establish a workout routine and try to make a point to eat healthier if you already are not doing that. And that also will dramatically increase just how much better you're going to feel in the long run. So definitely don't overwhelm yourself though when it comes to a workout schedule. Don't go in the gym like 5 days a week or 4 days a week thinking that's what you have to do. Of course, if you can do that, that's great. I mean, I'm proud of you then. But if you can't muster that up, and that's totally understandable, if you're more of a beginner, I would definitely start out with at least 3 days a week. I wouldn't go beyond that for your first, few weeks, just so you can get a feel for the gym and what it's all about. And if you have to, at least do 2 days, 2 to 3 days a week just to start out. That way you're not overwhelming yourself. You're not pressuring yourself into trying to perform better than you really have to. I mean, you don't have to go all in right away. I mean, when you start out slow always, and then build up from there.
This next question might still lead in from the last question. The final question I'll ask you for someone that's listened to this interview based on your journey and experience, what tips or advice would you give them to overcome obstacles, accomplish their goals, and rise to the challenge?
Yes. What I would say is, yeah, always just figure out what that problem is. Again, like get to the root cause of that problem. No matter if it's a small problem or a really huge big problem, figure out why that problem's a problem. That way, it's going to be a lot easier to work at, the solution and find out that solution. And then from there, just I would also write down just anything and everything that's, bothering you, whether it's making you depressed, angry, upset, um, maybe it's making you procrastinate. So whatever it is, just write that stuff down. And then to the side of each thing, write how you can eliminate that, as best as you can. That's another way that you can actually just really shorten the gap between you and your success and overall well-being. I would say that's a huge thing too.
Roman, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your rise to the challenge. You're inspiring so many people, and we are excited to see what the future looks like for you.
Definitely, as am I.
Tune in next time to hear my next guest talk about their rise to the challenge. Remember to follow and subscribe on all major audio platforms, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get full-length episode in video format. What path do you take to accomplish your goals? You decide.